There are two weapons that could see Charles Oliveira getting his hand raised this Saturday night. One of them dropped Michael Chandler, and the other one could see Ilia Topuria's gas tank completely drained by round 2. So let's break down exactly how Charles Oliveira can beat Ilia Topuria this Saturday. So before we speak about Charles Oliveira, it's important to get the context of what kind of fighter Ilia Topuria is and why he's been such a wrecking ball in the UFC so far. And it's all to do with his beautiful boxing. The guy currently is pound for pound, possibly the best boxer in the UFC. Really nice slipping head movement to get himself on the inside. And then the power this guy possesses is just ridiculous. Knocking out Max Holloway, that supposedly legendary chin, and KOing Alexander Volkanovski in the fight before that. However, as the saying goes, for every mountain there is a valley. I think that's a phrase. And for all his good head movement, this is the kind of thing that could actually put him in danger against Charles Oliveira. So slipping and getting you out on the inside is a fantastic way to avoid those straight shots, because as the jab or the right hand comes in, you can just angle off to the other side and close the distance on your opponent. And typically, Ilia Topuria is a shorter fighter, so he needs that kind of head movement to avoid long arms. And that was exactly what we saw against Josh Emmett in that epic 50-45 performance, where Emmett, this power puncher, could barely lay a glove on Ilia Topuria, because Topuria was just so good at closing that distance, slipping on the inside, getting his shots off, and then getting back out there again. So against someone who's firing straight shots, fantastic game plan. However, I think this could possibly play into Charles Oliveira's best weapon, which is his lead left hook. Because like I said, although Ilia Topuria's slipping is fantastic against straight shots, it doesn't protect you against the hooks. And Charles Oliveira's long lead hook, the way that he throws it around the guard, that could be the perfect counter to Ilia Topuria's game plan. Now, I've just brought up this clip from Charles Oliveira's, his title fight against Michael Chandler, the first one. And look, Michael Chandler, there are a few comparables you can make with Ilia Topuria. I know that I'm going to get slaughtered for this in the comments, but Michael Chandler is a shorter fighter. He likes to slip his way onto the inside. There are obvious differences as well. Let's face it, there's a lot more miles on Michael Chandler's clock. His footwork is a lot sloppier. It's not quite as clean as Ilia Topuria's. But in this fight, interestingly enough, Chandler, he looked for that long left hook that he likes to throw as well. But there were a lot of straight shots, jabs, right hands to the body, often to set up that left hook. But as you can see here in this exchange, which actually led to the finish, Chandler throws an overhand right and sets his head off to the side. In a similar motion, you can see Ilia Topuria doing. And then Charles Oliveira extends this perfect textbook left hook that just cracks Chandler perfectly on the chin. This actually led to the finish of this fight. And you can see here, Charles Oliveira throws this shot so nicely. His left shoulder's nice and high, protecting him from counters. And it'll go around the guard. You have to think if Chandler's hands were even in front of him here, because he does like to shell up sometimes when he moves in, this hook would still get round the outside. I just think it's such a good weapon, and I think it could be so useful in this fight. And look, this was the shot that led to the finish in this fight. So although Ilia Topuria, he's got fantastic head movement, and it's so good against a longer ranger opponent getting himself onto the inside, it's a great counter when someone's throwing straight shots. We know that Oliveira has a really powerful right hand, but if Charles Oliveira really wants to go out there and make a statement and finish Ilia Topuria on Saturday night, I think the lead left hook could be the answer to that. Ilia Topuria, he does hold his hands fairly high, he'll move in, and the gap will be there for Oliveira to land this shot. And now one of the worries that a lot of fans have going into this fight is if you get involved in a wild exchange with Ilia Topuria, even up at lightweight, it's very likely that Topuria is going to be an absolute beast and the power's going to carry up. So the good thing about Charles Oliveira's left hook is he fires it at range. So he doesn't need to get involved with all the messiness in the middle of the pocket. He can fire this out at range. He's very defensively responsible when he does throw it. So he doesn't even leave himself that open to a counter. So I do think this left hook is absolutely integral at interrupting the rhythm of Topuria early. If he lands it a couple of times early doors, it will make Topuria rush in more. And that could play into the next weapon that I think could be really, really key to Charles Oliveira. Because despite all I said about Oliveira wanting to keep it at range, one of the things that he does best is working in that chaos. When he gets hurt, he'll hurt his opponent. When it gets messy, Charles Oliveira, this next version of Charles Oliveira, who completely got rid of that quitter label, he did so well in these firefights against Justin Gaethje, against Dustin Poirier. These fights that got really messy, he came out on top. And one of the reasons why I think that he could come out on top on Saturday night is his work in the clinch and his knees. We're going to take a look at a clip in a second from his fight against Dustin Poirier, but I do think that Ilia Topuria will need to get onto the inside to land some shots. So it's really important that Oliveira completely shuts off that space, wraps him up in that clinch, and doesn't let Topuria get off those explosive hooks on the inside. That's so important, because we are going to be speaking about Charles's propensity to getting hurt in a second. So in this clip, it's really important to point out that Poirier had already hurt Charles Oliveira. Like I said, I'm sure that'll come as no surprise to any of you. But as soon as Poirier had him hurt, Oliveira has no problem charging across the octagon. It's a risky tactic, don't get me wrong. But once he gets his hands around Poirier's neck, Poirier didn't really have an answer for it. And as you can see here, he's really smothering Poirier here. And this tie clinch, he gets this grip. Oliveira absolutely loves this grip around the neck. And remember, Poirier, he's a big lightweight, isn't he? He went on Joe Rogan saying how he has to cut like 30 pounds, I think, or something ridiculous like that. Maybe even more to make the lightweight limit. And the dirty boxing Oliveira does in the clinch there. Nice little uppercut. And pulls him straight on. We'll keep it playing now. He's very strong here. There we go. And he doesn't just throw this. It's not a tappy little tie knee. He's got the grip here. And he's holding. You can't really see him. I think he's got a grip on Poirier's tricep on the other side. Let's keep it playing. Yeah, you can just see his hand there. And he lands a really nasty knee. Not into the gut, more around the rib area. But even so, these kind of shots will absolutely zap your gas tank. And look, he's so good at doing this, Oliveira. And one of the things that will be absolutely essential for Oliveira winning on Saturday night is he needs to slow down Topuria. If he lets Topuria get into a rhythm and his power keeps carrying through rounds 3, 4, and 5, then Oliveira could be in real trouble. We know that he's going to get hurt in this fight. That's going to be my next point. But before we get there, the knees are just going to be so important at slowing down Topuria, just draining that gas tank. Dustin Poirier in that first round, he ate 5 or 6 knees, and the guy visibly slowed down. Dustin Poirier went to war with Dan Hooker in that fight, remember. However many shots were exchanged there, and he kept going and going. But he visibly slowed down in the fight against Oliveira, and that's primarily because of the knees that Oliveira landed. So I really cannot stress enough that if it does get messy, and if Oliveira does get hurt or is a bit worried about the power coming back his way, then he needs to clinch up, get a hold of the naturally smaller guy that is Ilia Topuria, and land these devastating knees. If he can get 5 or 6 knees on Ilia Topuria in that first round, it sets him up in very good stead moving forward. Because no matter how powerful, how good Ilia Topuria's footwork is, when that gas tank starts to go, Oliveira will have a lot more success. So if I am trying to game plan for Charles Oliveira, I'm expecting Ilia Topuria to come out quite fast, really try and stick it on Charles Oliveira early, make a statement that will get the attention of Islam Makhachev and the UFC brass to try and make that super fight happen. So slow him down early on. When he comes rushing in, grab him, clinch him up, land that knee. And then in the second and third round, keep your range. That long left hook could even end up closing the show. I truly believe so strongly in these two weapons from Charles Oliveira. But there is the elephant in the room, which is the fact that Oliveira does get hurt. Every fight you look back on in recent memory, I know he got knocked out against Islam Makhachev. Arman Tsarukyan, not so much. He did put him in a few bad positions. But most fights that you expect to see from Charles Oliveira, he's going to get hurt at some point. But there is a flip side to that, which is in recent memory, he's won a lot more of those fights than he's lost. So despite the fact that he does get hurt, he shows incredible survivability. And if Topuria is able to knock him down and Topuria goes onto his back, I can't see Topuria swarming him in the same way that he did Max Holloway or Volkanovski, because there's always that threat that Oliveira will recover and try and get you into some kind of submission. And even if Topuria doesn't drop Oliveira, but he's clearly visibly hurt on the feet, that's one of the most dangerous places you can enter with Charles Oliveira, as we've seen before. So Ilia Topuria, I'm going to be making a video on his paths to victory later on this week, but he needs to be very careful. If he thinks he's hurt Oliveira, maybe it's worth taking a pause, hesitating slightly, just to make sure that the guy isn't recovering right in front of your eyes and planning on finishing you as well. So I think the point of this video is the fact that whilst Ilia Topuria's boxing is clearly very good, clearly very high level, it's not invincible. We've seen the guy hurt before against Jai Herbert on that left side, so maybe the left hook of Charles Oliveira, who knows, it could come up trumps. And as it stands, Ilia Topuria is currently the favourite going into this fight. He probably does have the secret backing of the UFC, because they'd love to create some super fight down the line. But let's not underestimate Charles Oliveira, the threat that he brings, particularly in these two weapons for this fight. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, like I said, I will be making an Ilia Topuria path to victory later on this week. If you want to go back and watch my video of Khalil Roundtree against Jamal Hill that I posted yesterday, please watch that too. Subscribe to the video, comment below if you think I'm right in picking these two weapons, and I'll see you guys in the next video.